Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Parent Academy on this February 9th. And our title this evening is Permission to Feel. I am Maureen Lang, the Executive Director for Learning Services, and I have the honor of leading a lot of our work in our district with social emotional learning. I am a mother of 2 District 20 graduates, and just recently I got to add grandmother to my list of titles or responsibilities. Welcome to everyone. This evening we have quite a few things for you that we're going to be putting in the chat so that you can have those as resources. So one of the things is a packet with some handouts for you. Another item is a copy of this PowerPoint. So if you would like to follow along with us and have later as a reference. Another thing in the chat is an evaluation, which we so appreciate your feedback and look forward to reading the things that you have for us as some feedback, and we ask that you please complete that before our time is up this evening. And then throughout our presentation, we're going to also have some other links in the chat. In fact, after we get started here, we're going to have one right away that it's a poll everywhere. So again, we ask for your participation this evening as well. And with me this evening, I have 3 other District 20 members, and we have Martha Hansen, who is our Health and Wellness Specialist, Rachel Lake, our Special Populations Specialist, and then Jackie Hansen, who is our Teacher on Special Assignment in our Learning Services. And all of us work in our Learning Services Department. This evening, and they'll introduce themselves more when we take turns presenting this evening. Just a little bit about our presentation this evening. This title is really what we want to express, is giving you the permission to feel as well as your children and your family. And tonight we're also going to give a brief introduction to the ruler program that we use in our schools, and then also some strategies for using at home. So with that, we are going to get started. This quote is a wonderful quote that we use a lot with our trainings that we do with our staff on with social emotional learning. And it's a great quote by Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So this quote may have reminded you of maybe an experience that you've had. And just think of those feelings that are attached to that experience. While you may not remember some of the small details, you most likely probably remember how you felt. These words echo the idea that emotions matter. We have the ability to impact how those around us feel through our actions, words, and decisions. Our emotions are so powerful that they can trigger the same feelings in others. And we know that that is kind of called a catching phenomenon, where we catch other people's emotions. So what we'd like you to do, we are going to put in the chat a link to go to Poll Everywhere. And we want you to think of a teacher in your own experience that you remember. And how did that person make you feel? So go ahead. We're going to have a little delay here while we get that in the chat, and then pull up the poll so we can see how people are responding. We always have to check on our technology. So think of a teacher or person in your life that impacted you positively. What is a word to describe how they made you feel? So we have supported, seen, And while some of you are typing, I forgot to mention that please, if you have any questions throughout our presentation, put those in the chat. And then at the end of our presentation, we will add or address your questions and provide some answers. And we'll see how much time we have at the end to do that. But we are planning on having some time for you to ask questions. Important, inspired, and you can see the words that are said the most are larger. Confidence, welcomed, thrilled, excited. Very good. All right, we're going to switch back. So thank you for responding. And throughout this evening, go ahead and, just think about situations that you've been in and how you felt. And with that, now we are going to show a quick video. So this is Dr. Mark Brackett, and he is the director for the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale. And he is the founder and is the scientist behind this ruler approach. And ruler starts with everyone in the community. And that's why it's so important for us to include our parents as part of that community. And we know that emotions matter and they affect everything we do. Research shows that emotions influence the way we pay attention to, remember, and learn, the decisions we make, our ability to be creative, think critically, and solve problems, how we feel both mentally and physically, how well we form and maintain relationships, our performance at school, and it impacts our performance at school, at home, and in the workplace. So let's go ahead and we're going to just a second, please.
The emotions matter because that's really who you are. When you look at yourself and when you try to understand how you're feeling, it's really a reflection of how you see others and how they're reacting to you.
I think emotions matter because it impacts everything we do, and our ability to regulate them will help us be successful.
Whatever emotion you're having kind of colors your view of things, how you think about things, and then in turn how you behave.
If you're sad or mad, friends can help you, play with you or calm you down.
Our lives are saturated with emotion. From the moment we wake up in the morning till the time we go to bed at night. Think about it. As a teacher, as a student, we have our morning routines. We commute to school. We have class 1, 2, 3, lunchtime, the afternoon. Oftentimes people think that emotions can be left at the door, that they can be kind of pushed aside. But what research shows is that emotions actually ensure survival. They ensure success in life. My name is Mark Brackett, and I'd like to welcome you to the world of emotions and emotional intelligence.
All right, and so you got to hear Dr. Brackett and have a little introduction to him. All right, let's go back now. To our PowerPoint. May need some tech help here. All right, so ruler, what is ruler? And this is the acronym that has been established again at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. So the R is recognizing emotions in ourselves and others. U, understanding the causes and consequences of emotions. L, labeling emotions accurately. And E, expressing emotions appropriately. And R, regulating. And Rachel will be going more in depth with those and also how that relates in our homes. So tonight we have a special guest. Susanna Thompson is one of our new District 20 parents, and we have invited her to join us this evening, and she is going to share her story about ruler and her journey to District 20. Welcome, Susanna.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Susanna Thompson, and I moved here in late November from Western Massachusetts. I found my way to Academy District 20 specifically because I identified that the district used ruler, and I was familiar with the approach from my work. I have an education background. I was a head of school before coming here, and I got to see Dr. Brackett at a conference before the pandemic last January. So COVID was all we knew about. It was, you know, this virus in China at that point. And I was at a conference that he gave a talk during, and I was so moved when he was speaking about emotions and identifying your emotions accurately and how it would help our children learn, that I actually ended up the presentation in tears, because I felt like this was what I was looking for, both in my parenting journey and at my school. So I left the conference. I immediately bought his book, which is Permission to Feel. I started reading it. I brought it to all of the teachers at my school and said, this is perfect. This is what we need. This is going to help. Started talking to all of the parents at my school about it. And then lo and behold, I ended up moving here and found that Academy District 20 used it. And we decided to buy a house in this district specifically because the district uses the ruler approach. It speaks so much to me as a parent because I have two girls, two children, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. One of them is deeply sensitive and an incredible little being, but we have been working to help her label her emotions, recognize, you know, what's happening in her body when she's feeling a certain way, and how those emotions kind of help her present to the world. So we're also working on this skill as grown-ups, children, but really it just meant so much to me to know that I could find a school district that used this approach and that I would be a partner with my child's teachers in making sure that what I was doing at home was resonating and being reinforced at school. And so I'm excited to be here. I am happy to answer questions at the end about how we use ruler in our own house, how I use it in my own life as a professional. And really, I just think you're all very lucky to be in this district because it's one of the only districts in the entire country that uses the approach district-wide. It's a huge asset that we all have, and we should feel good about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susanna. That was well said, and we're glad to have you and your family here in District 20. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Lake, and I am the Special Populations Specialist, as Maureen said earlier, and that is a new position in the district this year, and I'm supporting students who are homeless and students who are in foster care. I think it does speak again to the approach that the district is taking to take care of our kids and their emotions and their needs related to their life circumstances, that this position was created. So I feel fortunate to be working in this job right now. And I'm going to talk to you tonight. Oh, I wanted to tell you too, I have 4 kids that the last one is about to graduate from, they've all gone through D20 schools. And we've had great experiences here and challenging experiences as our kids have gone through their different developmental stages, and a lot of it tied to emotions and social skills. So I would like to go through the acronym of RULER and talk to you a little bit more about each one of these areas and some strategies and things that you can notice for each of these skills. The first R is for recognize, and it's the skill of how we recognize emotions in ourselves and others with accuracy. Until we can recognize our emotions, we can't learn the skills that we need to regulate them. So recognizing is the first step toward understanding our emotional state or someone else's emotional state. So we make automatic judgments all day long about how people are feeling. And if we could ask each one of those people that we make a judgment about how they're actually feeling, most of the time we would probably be wrong. So accurately reading facial expressions, body language, vocal tones, all of those things are what help us to make social interactions possible and positive with our peers and our colleagues. So we can't rely solely on our senses to recognize emotions in ourselves and others. There are so many ways we can misinterpret what we see or hear. So in order to really know what's going on in our own emotions and in others, we need to know what's caused it. So that takes us to understanding. And understanding emotions really starts when we get the answer to why the feeling is there, what's underlying the feeling. And what we know is the stronger the feeling that we're having, the higher the stakes are, and then the higher the need to understand what's going on. And that's especially true with our children who don't have vocabulary yet to make their feelings clear to others. So we can ask several questions about the underlying cause, and some of those questions that can be successful to get you to that underlying answer is, what might have happened to cause this feeling? Or what usually makes you feel this way? Or what were you doing just before you started feeling this way? And what do you need right now? I think those are questions that we have to practice using. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. We might ask, what's wrong, what's going on, without asking those questions that can really get to the underlying feeling. And something we need to remember is that when the manner in which we ask those questions, we're sending unspoken messages about about how we're feeling about what's going on in the way we ask those questions. So instead of being judgmental in our tone when we're asking, we really need to be sincere in order to get that underlying meaning about what's going on. So knowing the underlying reason helps us support others in an appropriate way, because we vary the strategies we use to support people based on how the other person is feeling. And so that leads us into labeling. And without a proper vocabulary, we cannot label our emotions. So if we can't label them, we can't put them into perspective. Labeling connects recognizing and understanding the first 2 components of RULER to the last 2 components of RULER, which are expressing and regulating. And research shows that kids who accurately label their feelings enjoy more positive social interactions than kids who cannot. So we really have a lot of work to do in this area. I know for myself, and if you'll notice this, if you pay attention to people around you, if you are asked how you're feeling, most of us will say fine, or I'm well, I'm doing okay. And if you're asked to go into more specific detail to label that emotion, it can be really challenging. So we need to increase our own emotional vocabulary and teach it to our kids as well, because the more our kids can use words to describe what they're feeling, the better we are able to support them. Also, I think it's important for us to recognize that if we can identify what we're feeling early on in an emotional state before it becomes unmanageable, we can intervene earlier and prevent some, bigger outcomes from happening that could have a negative impact. So when you can understand and name your emotions, something magical happens. Just acknowledging what you're feeling in an accurate way creates the ability to shift. And that takes us to express. When we express our emotions, we're saying, here's what I feel and why, here's what I want to happen next, and here's what I need from you right now. Permission to feel and express our emotions doesn't mean that we just have license to let it out, to yell, to scream and carry on, or act on emotional impulses and behave like we have no control over how we feel. So that's something I think we need to clarify here. When we're saying permission to feel, it doesn't mean permission to act any way you want based on those feelings, because we know that can create very unmanageable situations with people around us. We also know that when we express our emotions in a healthy way, it benefits not only our ability to communicate with others, but it also has a positive impact on our physical and mental health. The research shows that there are drops in physician visits, our immune function is increased, we have lower blood pressure, we have a long-term improvement in mood, a reduction in stress, less absenteeism at work. All of those things can come from healthy emotional expression. When we're afraid to express our emotions, we need to remind ourselves that there's no shame in it, and it actually helps us to learn how to regulate them. So regulation is the most challenging of these 5 skills, but you've been doing it since you were born. And, their babies regulate themselves, they express their emotions freely, and then they are able to regulate with the support of other people. And, as you go through your day, you are regulating all day long, even if you feel like you've lost it some of the time. Most of the time, you are regulating your emotions. And there are unlimited number of strategies to use for regulation. What works for you today might not work for you tomorrow, and what works for you might not work for your spouse or your child. And then again, emotional regulation doesn't mean we are about suppressing our feelings or just letting them all out at any cost, or that we're just worried or that we're just concerned about having only positive feelings. It's about giving ourselves and others the permission to own all of our feelings. So Jackie, when she comes to the screen here, she's going to talk a lot about the tools that we can use to help identify our emotions and to regulate our emotions through the ruler tools and anchors that she will talk about. So what I want you to hear from this section too is that we can't just say, okay, going forward, I know that I need to be regulated all the time so that I can have healthy emotional expression and interactions with people. But you need to give yourself permission to feel and also permission to fail. And when that happens, you try again and start back at the first R of ruler and use the tools that we have to get better and better at these skills. And I'm going to hand it off to Jackie.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackie Hansen. I'm a teacher on special assignment in curriculum and instruction. I have 2 children that attend elementary school. I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and then I also have an almost 1-year-old. So we're going through all of this again. Really, I think Susanna hinted at this. When we think of social emotional wellness, we really need to remember that it is foundation to learning. So in order for our kids to fully learn and get their academic content from school, they have to be socially and emotionally well. So these tools that Ruler has shared with us has kind of been our platform for using that, especially at elementary. And our secondary schools use these tools as well. You may have heard them called anchors as well. So the first one is called the charter. And the charter is an agreement we make to act in a certain way. This is a helpful way that we can tell our family, we can tell our schools how we want to feel when we're together. Everyone has a voice in creating that charter, and everyone has a responsibility to uphold it. The second anchor is our mood meter. And this anchor helps build awareness of emotions in ourselves and others. It helps expand our emotional vocabulary. It helps us manage our emotions. And it shows us how emotions have two dimensions, the degree of pleasantness and our thoughts and energy of our bodies. We're going to take a lot of time in just a little bit to kind of further develop those two skills, because those are the two anchors that our students use most often. Now the next one is the meta moment, and it teaches us how to extend the time between feeling emotionally triggered and our reaction. Instead of being reactive, the meta moment helps us pause and think of our best self and choose helpful ways to respond. As a parent, I use this with my children all the time and just help them remember how they can see themselves in their best self. We had them paint themselves and then write some words that help them remember why they were their best self and how they could be there. The fourth tool is the blueprint, which provides a series of questions as a guide for reflecting on our thoughts and emotions during conflict. By practicing perspective taking and empathy, we can have a compassionate conversation and work to restore relationships. So those are the four anchors of Ruler that really help to develop our social emotional wellness. Moving on to the mood meter, we're going to spend some time here. The mood meter is that tool that helps us build awareness of emotions in ourselves and others. It helps us understand how our emotions influence our thinking and behavior, and it empowers us to recognize and label our full range of emotions and use our emotions wisely. The skills help us get along with others and make better choices in our lives. The mood meter shows all emotions have a place and that all emotions are okay, even unpleasant emotions. Though they may feel uncomfortable, they can serve us in certain situations. Part of working with the mood meter involves developing strategies to help us work skillfully with those emotions. Now, I have to tell you a story of when my daughter was in kindergarten. I was a part of the implementation team when we brought Ruler to our school, and we were camping, and my daughter brought out a piece of wood, and we always have chalk or whatever, and she drew a mood meter on there. And she was talking to me about it, and I knew what it was because I was a part of the team that used it. My husband looked at me and said, "What is this? And what is she talking about? What language is she speaking?" So that was our first key to how important it was to partner with families and how, as a family, we could use it at home. And that was the first time we started using it, and we come back to this often. Now, Mark Brackett says you have to name it to tame it. And that's one quote that I think is really powerful when we're looking at the mood meter. My own daughter, who several of you have seen in the little promo videos, says you have to name it to claim it. So she's kind of redone that for herself, really trying to say that she's going to claim the behavior that the emotion that she's feeling. So just to kind of talk you through this, because I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to experience how to measure how you're feeling on the mood meter. The lines on the mood meter running from the left to right, those represent pleasantness. It ranges from unpleasant on the far left and then extremely pleasant on the far right. The line that runs up and down or vertically represents how much physical energy a person feels in their body and mind, ranging from extremely low to extremely high at the top. You will notice the mood meter has 4 quadrants. If you look at the red quadrant, that means that you have high energy, but it's low pleasantness, and you may feel frustrated. You might have fear. The blue quadrant is unpleasant. It has low energy, and it is unpleasant. So you might feel something like disappointment. You might feel lonely. You might feel sad. Now, the green quadrant coming over onto the pleasantness is low energy, but more pleasant, and it might be things like peaceful. You might have more balance. You might feel serene. The yellow quadrant is pleasant. You have high energy, like happiness, joy, and excitement. Many of our kids do these mood meter check-ins several times a day. So sometimes our teachers start with it in the morning. Sometimes they do it when we get back from recess, just to do a check on where kids are and how they're feeling. So we would love for you, Martha's going to put in the chat box a link to plot yourself on the mood meter and share how you're feeling. And while she's doing that, I'm going to pull it up so that you can see what this looks like. So again, when we look at that, we're trying to think of our pleasantness and our energy. If you go to that link, or you can even go follow these directions over here, moodmeter.online, and enter the group code, it'll bring you to our mood meter. Now, each time we plot ourselves, and you guys can continue to do this as I'm talking through some of these questions because it might help you figure out where you're at. Each time we plot ourselves on the mood meter, we can reflect on the questions when we're thinking of recognizing, where am I on the mood meter? We can understand what may have caused me to feel this way. Was I up late, maybe stressing over a presentation the next day, or maybe I'm super high energy and nervous? Are we labeling what specific word best describes my emotion? So again, moving through that vocabulary and making sure that you can fully label. Expressing how am I displaying the emotions through my facial expressions and body language or behavior. Sometimes when we see how our eyes can move, or our, oops, now we lost it, there we go. Or we can think of regulating. Is the emotion helpful to me? Is this where I want to be? If so, will I maintain it? If not, what strategy can I use to shift? So our kids have those conversations all day, throughout the day, kind of thinking of where they're at coming in from recess. Perhaps they have to shift to a different quadrant to get the most out of their learning. It's really important to have these conversations, not only just at school, but at home too. It's very helpful. All right, we can see that 2 people are feeling a little bored tonight. We have some that are grateful, optimistic, content, and excited. All right, moving on to some strategies. And as a parent, this is really helpful. This was helpful for me in recognizing my own kids and where they were at and how they could move forward. So this handout is actually in your packet. The most important thing here is to remember that no matter where you are in the mood meter, or no matter what you're feeling, it's okay. You have permission to feel, and it's the goal not always to be in yellow, but it's the goal to recognize where you're at and know where you have to be. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk through each of the quadrants and how you're feeling and what might be a good activity to do when you're feeling that way. So if you're feeling really frustrated or angry or stressed, it's probably a good time to really have an argument, and not an argument in a bad sense, but really like a persuasive argument where you're trying to really debate something or advocate for something that you believe in. When you're passionate about something, that red energy really helps support. Now, if for some reason you're feeling like you need to move out of that red quadrant, you might choose to go for a walk, do some exercising or some deep breathing to really clear your head and calm your body. All right, when we're in the blue, you might feel sad, lonely, depressed. It's a good time to really work on some detail-oriented projects, perhaps something like proofreading. Being in the blue can be a good time for writing or really being a good listener to a friend. If you want to move out of the blue, music is a great strategy. Putting on some upbeat music, dancing, talking with a friend, those are all great ideas to move out of the blue if you're feeling like you need to. All right, now thinking of yellow, a lot of times when our kids come in from recess or come in from a busy day, they might feel pretty energized and excited. So teachers use a lot of these strategies to perhaps move kids depending on where they need to be. So if you're feeling happy, excited, energetic, it's a good time to start projects or brainstorm or problem solve. If you need to move out of the yellow, try turning on going for a walk and use some of that energy, and even have a walking meeting if you need to. And the last quadrant is really thinking of that green area. If you're feeling calm, relaxed, it's a great time to collaborate. It's a great time to receive feedback and really give feedback if you need to. And it's a great time for self-reflection. So as I think about this work, and as a parent, this resonates with me, just thinking that green area is a really good time for, as a parent, to be watching this and really thinking about what you might use. And then when we want to move out of the green, listening again to that upbeat music, get up, get moving, boost your energy because you want to move. All right, like I said, the second tool that we're going to focus on tonight is the family charter. And like I mentioned, many classrooms develop a charter that really helps them to establish how they want to feel when they're together. On the Ruler Family website, which we've put in as our resources as well, you can look at that. There's a great video on how to create a family charter. But really what you want to ensure is you want to make sure that everybody's a part of the process so that everybody has the same buy-in for this. So you think, as a family, we want to feel, and I can tell you as a parent, I did this with my children when they were in 2nd and 4th grade, and they were able to really have great conversation about how they wanted to feel when we were at home together or when we were having dinner. So what we did was we just took scraps of paper and wrote down our feelings and how we wanted to feel. We put them all together, and it was really surprising that we were all pretty much on the same page for some of those feeling words. And then once we had those feelings established, we picked about 5, I think. We decided that in order to feel that way, we needed to give each other suggestions for how to keep ourselves there. So these 2 guiding questions can help you and your family in establishing a charter. How do you want to feel when we're together? And how will we help each other have those feelings more often? There's also a tip sheet in that packet that can really bring you through that process. Another thing I just wanted to share, a lot of classrooms, like I said, have these charters developed. And as a parent, seeing that charter that your child is working towards with their classes is something that you can use to support your teachers as well when you're having conversations at home. All right, Martha is going to share now some conversations about emotions and how to keep them going with your students.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Martha Henson. I am the Health and Wellness Specialist for the district and I also have a son and a daughter that are graduates of D20 and went to middle school and high school here. So I know all about those difficult times through puberty and emotional outbursts and how important it is to be able to have those conversations. And, you know, there's so many reasons to really be intentional about having these conversations. It improves your bond with them. It just brings you so much closer. It encourages them to listen to you. Like, hey, mom or dad know what I'm feeling or I'm talking about. It helps them to form healthy relationships. It's a model for them as they start to interact with their peer group outside of school and as they grow into their teens and young adulthood, to be able to express themselves is so important for healthy relationships. It builds their self-esteem. It helps them express their thoughts, to get what they need, to resolve conflicts, to ask for help. There's just, and it builds, I can't say enough how much it builds their confidence and who they are, and just gives them that increased security and safety in their home. And then as they leave their home, it kind of goes with them, right? So as you can see from the screen, Ruler has some great resources for you. They are in your packet that we attached to the chat earlier. These that you're looking at right now are questions for elementary students, for children. And there's 3 different categories that these questions fall into. One category is let's do it together. So an example might be for kindergarten and 1st grade, select 5 emoji faces together and ask your child to name the feeling, and you name that feeling as well. This is a great chance to kind of increase that feeling word vocabulary that we talked about. And other than just using sad, mad, happy, that's what we tend to use, right? We go to those easy words when there's a word that might be better to describe. Like instead of mad, I might be frustrated. I might be really disappointed. So that's really important. So that's an example of a kindergarten, 1st grade one. 2nd and 3rd grade, you might practice understanding emotions, reading together, asking a question like, why do you think the character in this story feels that way? And then a 4th and 5th grade type question might be to ask your child to identify the character in the book who seems to manage their emotions well, and how does that affect their interactions and relationships. So you can take this from each, from preschool to kindergarten all the way up to high school, and we'll get, by developmental level to help them to continue to explore and really become that emotion scientist and understanding themselves. There are other sections, there are other categories, excuse me. One is, did you notice? And those are things for you and your child to be aware of. So you might, for a kindergarten or first grader, you might find times during the week to, when you see your child handling feelings really well, and just acknowledge them for that. 2nd and 3rd grade, you might talk to your child about, our bodies give us clues when we're dealing with sometimes difficult emotions. So how might our body feel if we're really nervous? Or how might our body feel when we really get angry? Do we clench our fist, or does our heart beat faster? Those kinds of things. And then a 4th and 5th grader, that same kind of conversation might be, have you noticed a time, or can you think of a time when you noticed a friend's emotions, and what were the clues to that? You're starting to really they're starting to get out of themselves and really become a lot more relational. And it helps those friend relationships. I think Rachel spoke to it earlier, that kids who are better able to label and express emotions have more successful social relationships. And we know once they hit middle school and high school, those peer relationships really become paramount. And those students who don't have those strong social supports, they struggle, and it's difficult. What about those secondary kids, right? There's so many changes once students go from elementary to middle, and you think, what has happened to my child in middle school? Puberty hits, and they become much more emotional. That's just part of those hormonal changes. And their emotions can be very intense sometimes. And with all that going on, they tend to start to gravitate away from us parents, and they gravitate more to their peer group, and that peer group becomes really important in their lives. So it's just really important during that time as parents not to get too frustrated, because it is kind of a big difference, but to continue to offer support, to be gentle and persistent. I remember when my daughter went through a phase where she just wanted to be alone in her bedroom. And of course, we set up guidelines around that. But, there was one night I remember specifically, I wrote her a little note on a little piece of paper and just slid it under her door to say, hey, Dad and I are playing a game. We'd really love for you to come play with us. And just kind of those gentle, persistent kind of things. And she just got a kick out of it and thought it was really funny and came out and played a game with us. So don't give up on them. So you see some questions here on the screen. These are just some ideas for you. What are 3 things you find yourself thinking most often? What is one positive word your friends use to describe you? That might give you a little more insight into how your child is seen by their peers. You might have them describe one of their close friends. And what is it that makes you close? These are all great questions to really get them talking and really develop their social emotional skills. What helps you make a decision when you aren't sure what to do? That's a good one, huh? I think that's a good one for the adults too, right? So also in your packet, you have a list of 83 conversation starters for parents to use with teens. And I like these particularly because they're in categories. There's a personal category, there's a school category, there's social interactions category, dealing with relationships, future, family, and then values. So I'm just going to share, I just love some of these questions. And as you know, in my experience, I remember when we would get home from work and school in the afternoon, I would say to my son, "How was your day?" "Fine." "Oh, anything exciting happened?" "No." "Great. Okay." So I wasn't doing a very good job as a parent. So you really have to think about using open-ended questions. And it's amazing some of the conversations that can get started with that. So for instance, you might ask, what part of your day do you look forward to? Or what was something that made you laugh today? For social interactions, what makes a good friend? I think that's really insightful for students and for you to hear what they say. Or what makes a healthy relationship? If you could travel anywhere in the world, where do you go? That's a fun one. That's a good one for the dinner table. I love this one with under the family section. It's, what do you think I like most about you? It's really interesting to hear what they, how they feel about, or what their perspective is about what you like most about them, or what they think there. But also it's a great chance for you to be able to share more things about what you like about them. And one of the other ones, and this also just supports good social emotional wellness, is what are 3 things that you're grateful for today? Or one of my favorites that I used to use with students all the time when I was in private practice and in schools is, what are 3 things that went well today? I call them the WWWs. And sometimes it's really hard for them to come up with those. But once you keep asking that, they sometimes just come busting your door down. "Oh, I can't wait to tell you what went well today." So, and it really gets them more in a grateful mindset and looking for good things versus those negative things that can really bring us down with emotions. Rather than lift us up. So tips for building stronger family relationships. You might say, this is a lot of information tonight, and we've learned about recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating emotions. But how can we do this better in our families and with our families and our homes, and build stronger relationships? So just some tips for you, and this is also in your packet. The first one I think is to really pay attention to ourselves and to our children. To feelings come and go. We have a lot of different feelings all day long. I went from being kind of stressed out today with having back-to-back meetings to playing with my dog in the backyard when I took a quick break to go home and brush my teeth before this happened. So just a lot of different emotions happen every day. So, and we learn things from them about ourselves, and they signal, they're kind of our body's little alarm system to kind of give us information about what's going on. And it's the same with our children. We can learn a lot, right, by just paying attention. Feeling your feelings. We all know that stuffing our feelings or not dealing with them usually doesn't work out very well for us. Sooner or later, they're going to come out. So noticing and naming or claiming your feelings, as Jackie's daughter has so well said, they can help us make better decisions and know ourselves better. talking about our feelings, engaging. Oh, sorry, that was my bad. Engaging in conversations with family members just, I think, helps us all understand and appreciate each other more. And sometimes just being able to talk through those helps us untangle or figure something out or why we were feeling that way. And it gives us clarity about what to do next. Listening. This is a hard one for parents because it's just like in our parent DNA to lecture, right? With all the experience I have in working with children, with my own children, it just is that default sometimes. So to really seek to listen non-judgmentally, to listen, to understand, and really seeking not to dismiss another's feelings. I had a student one time that came in and was dealing with some pretty significant depression. And he came in and he said, but you know, I can't feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way because my parents say I have so many good things in my life, and I shouldn't feel depressed. And while, you know, I know those parents did not mean any harm whatsoever. However, your feelings are your feelings, right? And it's regardless of what you have in your world or what's going on around you. So we need to be careful not to dismiss those with our kids and to listen. Be curious. So Mark Brackett has he uses the term a lot. We have to be emotion scientists and really look at feelings from that scientific curiosity standpoint. And it can really help us discover things about ourselves and enrich all of our relationships. It also really starts to help us understand behaviors as a result of these feelings. And that can be very helpful when you're dealing with your children with difficult behaviors. Instead of them just acting out, there's something underneath there, right? That we need to kind of figure out, what is that emotion? Showing empathy. This is huge. We all want to be understood. We all want to be valued for how we feel. And while we may not agree with others' actions, it's important to seek to understand the feeling, right, that they might be experiencing. This is super important because it really establishes that safety net, that trust for, you know, everyone in your family, but especially your children, so that later on, as they grow from preteens to teens to young adults, that they will have that foundation of safety and trust with you. Choose your responses wisely. Oh my goodness, we all can learn from this one. We've all had those situations where we've reacted to a feeling and said something that was hurtful or that we wish we could take back the minute we say it. And it's just so important to know that just because we have a feeling doesn't mean we act on it. And as Jackie shared earlier, as one of the tools we have is the meta moment. And that meta moment is really to help us pause, take a breath, like we say, okay, this is, I'm pretty angry and upset right now, and take some breaths and then picture, you know, what would our best self do? What would be the best possible way to react to this? And then we choose a response that we can feel proud of versus something that we might regret later. This is so much easier said than done, but really just taking some moments, step into another room, or put yourself in your own personal little timeout to take some breaths and be able to react in a more positive way. Remember, there's more than one view. We often feel we're right? And especially, we love it when we win the battle and someone can say, you were right, I was wrong, right? But we can still be right and still be able to see another person's point of view and to look at it that way. And being able to share different points of view in your family around the dinner table even can be really healthy. Staying connected, taking time every day to connect with each other. I know we're all so very busy and we have hectic lifestyles, and we may even just be tired of each other because many of us have been quarantined and living under one roof together. But being able to just take moments and connect every day is invaluable to your child's social emotional wellness and growth. And having the courage to repair. After an argument, sometimes it's hard to be the one that's the first one to say, I'm sorry. But it's, don't be afraid to do that, to reach out. It's more of a sign of strength, I think. And especially when we've said something that was hurtful, even though the other person might have said something hurtful too, to be able to say that I'm sorry, it gives that person a release of whatever negative feeling that they're having, and it opens that door for a more productive conversation. And last but certainly not least, add a dose of kindness. All of us can use more kindness in our lives. It makes all of our relations warmer, and when it's all said and done, we'll be glad that we have added kindness and compassion towards one another. So thank you, and I'm going to let Maureen close us out here.
All right. Well, we are closing up this evening. However, I just want to remind you, if you have some questions, please add those to the chat. And also, I wanted to share with you our journey with Ruler in District 20. So a team of administrators they were visiting another school district in another state and saw the mood meter being used in classrooms and the class charter being used. And from that, this group of administrators said, oh my goodness, this is something that we would like to pursue and see if it would be, if our colleagues would also agree with us that we want to have this be a focus for our district on social emotional wellness. So from there, we're in contact with Dr. Mark Brackett. He has been able to come to our district several times. And in fact, just this past January, virtually, he spoke with our staff again, and just they are helping us as a school district to go deeper with this implementation. So we've had staff members trained, and we've done several parent academies over the past couple of years. And again, we want to make sure that we are engaging our students in this work, our staff, and our parents, and our community. With our implementation, if you are at a variety of schools with all of the different schools in our district, there's a continuum of implementation. We have some schools that are in the starting phases. We have some schools that are farther along on that continuum. But as Mark Brackett says, with our social emotional wellness, it is a journey. And we are viewing that the same way with our schools, that we are on this journey with social emotional learning, and we want to make sure that we are doing what is best. And I just wanted to share a story, but with this closure, I want you to be thinking about what is one idea that has resonated with you this evening. And Martha, again, is going to put the link into the poll everywhere. So while she is doing that, I want to share a story that one of our schools, I actually was attending a parent night probably a couple of years ago at one of our schools, and they were sharing with the parents the mood meter. And one of the moms raised her hand and said, "Oh my goodness, I need another mood meter magnet." And the school had handed out magnets. And she said, "My child was upset and could not find the mood meter that was on the refrigerator. And he was saying, I just need that mood meter so I can show you how I am feeling and where I am feeling." And with that, then, that it was a great story for the mom to be able to share how that simple magnet that was on their refrigerator was helping in their family with their children being able to, maybe even just point to how they were feeling. And one other story, I'll just tell another story. One of our principals was sharing that when a student had a disagreement on the bus, and what happened was then the bus attendants brought the child into the office, and she had a mood meter poster in her office, and this child said, because she asked him about what had happened, and he said, "Well, when I got up this morning, I was in the yellow. I was happy, I was excited to go to school because we were doing a special project today. And then on the bus, my sister started poking me from behind, and I moved to the red and was frustrated and mad at my sister. And so that is why I kicked the door when I left the bus." But again, it is so helpful for our students to be able to identify where they are at on the mood meter. So with that, we are going to go to the poll everywhere and see if we have some responses on what is one idea that resonated with you this evening. Okay, and again, click the link that is in the chat box, please, because we use the same poll everywhere, so make sure that you're going to the one that has this question. And every time I do these presentations, it's so fun to hear. I learn every time also. So we have validated, happy. Here's a good one. I love what Miss Rachel Lake said about labeling our emotions. We should not be labeling with good or fine, but rather digging deeper and thinking about what you really are feeling. I also like that she indicated we need to express how we feel, but in a controlled manner. Great, thank you. Apologizing and taking a meta moment as adults, definitely. The points of conversation, good, yes. I know when our daughters were in middle school and high school, I made sure that I, again, kind of pay attention and took the time. And when they're in their rooms, I usually would go in and just sit on their bed and start up a conversation, because then you're in their space and it's more of you're there to listen. Good, I'm glad you enjoyed the conversation starters. They are good reminders. Good. I know the past couple of years when we were able to do this in person, we were able to hand out mood meter magnets, but you can contact me and we still have some left over, so we could send you some mood meters or have them at our front desk of our admin building. That if you can label an emotion properly, you can manage it better. Yep, like Jackie said, her daughter, if I name it to claim it. and having deeper conversations and questions. Yeah, and like Martha said, those open-ended questions. Good, I am glad that you liked those conversation starters. All right. Courage to repair, yes. I think that's one thing that I know I've learned with parenting is that courage to repair. And with, I know even our adult children, I picked up something tonight from those conversation starters that I think I want to ask both of my daughters of what do they think that how I feel about them or what I enjoy about them. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And with that, I am going to share again. And we have just a couple more slides. So this one is resources, and Dr. Mark Brackett has written a book. It's called Permission to Feel. And if you go on Amazon, there are two different ones. The content is the same, but there is one that is for parents, and this is the one that's on our screen that has the circles, the colored dots. Then there is another one also that is Permission to Feel, and it has, I believe, a picture of the mood meter on the front, but artistic. And so just, take a look at those two books if you are interested in accessing that. You can also, he is doing book studies, and that's through the YouTube, so you can always join that if you feel you'd like to learn more about the ruler approach. Then this website here is really where we got a lot of the resources for this evening. It is open to all parents, and it is loaded with a variety of resources for families. So please check it out. And then, Martha, do we have any questions this evening?
The only question we have there is their mood meter magnet for D20 parents.
Yes, we'd love for you to have some mood meter magnets. So my email is maureen.lang@asd20.org. And if you email me, we will either set some aside at the front desk of our admin building, or we can mail you some. We'd love to share our mood meter magnets.
Can you also share about the mood meter app? There was a question about that.
Oh, yes. Yes, in fact, if I had my phone, you want to bring me my phone, please? I can show the mood meter app. So there is an app on your phone. Thank you. And you just go to the Apple Store or the App Store, I'm not sure what it's called. And you can download this mood meter app. I'm just going to see if I can show it, maybe not. And with that, it is, whoops, it didn't really do that very well. So you go in and you can say how you are feeling. And then again, it's like that survey that you did with Jackie, where you can plot yourself, and then it asks you if you want to stay there or if you want to move to a different quadrant or a different feeling. And it keeps track of how you are feeling at different times of the day. We had one of our administrators who was just having different feelings, a variety of feelings, when she was going into her school building in the morning. And so she started plotting herself and really was recognizing what it was that maybe was triggering some of those emotions that she was feeling in the morning. You know, maybe it was being rushed because she was getting her own children ready for school. Or maybe it was that she had a meeting that she had to attend right away when she walked into the building. So, and again, it's part of that first R, just recognizing, you know, why are you feeling the way that you're feeling at different points throughout the day. And so, yes, go to the App Store and you can download the Mood Meter app. Any other questions? All right. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time, and we always have this recorded, and will be up probably in about a week, where we add it under the Parent Academy part on our website, and off to the right-hand side there are the links from all of our past Parent Academy sessions. So please, if you look at that, you might want to tune in to some of our other Parent Academies. In 2 weeks, we are doing another Parent Academy, and this is one that was postponed from when we had a snow day in January, and so it is on vaping, and it's Dr. Piantanita from UC Health. So please plan to join us for that. And again, I just want to thank our presenters, Martha, Rachel, Jackie, and our parent this evening, Susanna. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening. Good night.